Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Artist Survival Tactics. In this one, I want people to understand that being an artist, well, when people ask me what I do for a living, I only say artist. I don't say I'm an illustrator. I don't say I'm a painter. I don't say any of that jazz because I think artist pretty much describes what I do. Now let me explain why. And the reason why is this. When I was a teenager and I decided that this is what I want to do for a living. To be quite honest, I don't really think I had a choice. Anything else just felt wrong. You know, it was crazy. It was like I've had so many other opportunities to do things that would have probably paid more in the immediate, but I just couldn't do it. Even though I was good at them, I just couldn't do it. I've always had a drive to create and create great art. It was attempt to create great art. My parents did not think at the time that I was sane when I was, they did everything in their power to go ahead and discourage me from doing art for a living. So to prove them wrong, first off, I had to make sure that I didn't fail. And the way I did that was early on, I decided to learn everything. Like just being able to draw a pretty picture just wasn't going to be enough. I decided anything that made money, that was a craft or a skill that an artist could learn to do, and that appealed to me, I would do it. I'll learn it and put it inside my artist toolbox. So, and I want everybody to notice too, like you don't have to go to school to become an artist. Your portfolio is your resume. It doesn't matter like what when I used to work in advertising, I've fired so many people that had college degrees because college doesn't get you ready for the real world. And to be quite honest, I think they just pay you you just pay them a bunch of money for that piece of paper. Like there's very few artists that I see coming out of college that actually are any good, to be honest. I think it's a bunch of kids who are like, you know, I think they romanticize the idea of doing art for a living rather than want to actually put the work in to do art for a living. So, and to get back to my point, so anyway, I wanted to learn everything I possibly could. The hardest part of being an artist was breaking into the art field. Once I got my foot in the door, I was actually competing for it. Like it was two of us going for the same job, and it was at a screen print company. And the guy I was competing with actually graduated from LSU. Unfortunately, his degree didn't come with talent, and I ended up beating him out and getting a job. And once I got in, I was working with in an art department, so I was surrounded by other artists. And that was probably one of the most educational atmospheres that I ever was in, because each artist, besides having to do the drudgery of doing color separations and coming up with new designs to sell to tourists, each one of them had something that they actually specialized in. One guy was a sculptor, and he was showing off his sculptures. I remember the guy who actually spoke up for me to get the job, Eugene. He was a very talented airbrush artist, and I've noticed like airbrush artists made a ton of money. Like they would walk into a fair, do t-shirts all weekend and walk away like like $10,000 to $20,000 in cash. It was nuts. So immediately I latched on to anybody that could teach me something new. And even pastels, like I was working with dry pastels, like and it was so educational. Once, but like I said, once you get your foot in the door, that's the hardest part is getting in and keeping your job, and once you get in, the learning just starts, and you're getting paid to learn. And I never limited myself. I never said like I'm only going to do pencils. Like I only want to be a comic book illustrator, because that was always my goal, was to illustrate comics. But I didn't want to just do that. I didn't want to just pencil and ink books. Quite honestly, maybe I suffered from that too. Maybe I romanticized the idea of being a comic artist too much, because doing panel work at the time really didn't appeal to me. I just wanted to create cool characters and do, cool pinups. It wasn't until later on that I actually buckled down and said, no, I gotta, I want to do panel work. Panel work is, it pays the bills and stuff like that. But I also learned how to airbrush. Within 2 years, my airbrushing skills were second to none. I mean, here's a video of me airbrushing, and this is just the tank that I was doing as a promo piece. And so anyway, I made a ton of money doing airbrush art, and I learned so much about light, shading, and about art in general. And then from there, I was always a pretty good painter. At the age of 7, I was my uncle was teaching me how to oil paint, and he was the talented one in the family. And it actually, I was one of the very few people in my family that inherited that talent. So anyway, he was teaching me to oil paint at 7. And those skills, I kind of just put them away and just never busted them out again for a good long while. But when I decided to, there was a point where I wanted to bust into the fine art field. And what I discovered was that fine art is a joke. It was just full of a bunch of people who were just blowing each other's egos up. Very, very few of them made any money whatsoever. And it wasn't really that creative. It was people who graduated from college and these are the people that, they were just really unskilled, but they discovered if they throw some paint at a canvas, or take a bunch of magazines, cut them up and stick them to a canvas, like that all of a sudden was art to them. And I just could never accept that. And I do not want to get into a rant about my take on fine art, because it's not a good one. And it would eat up. I could go for about an hour on how the fine art field is just a goddamn joke. But anyway, my point to this video is, don't be scared to experiment and play with different mediums. Every one of them pays off, and every one of them, when you may have a different take on doing a comic cover or a magazine cover or whatever than everybody else that's doing it around you. I mean, the main thing about being an artist is to separate yourself from all the other artists, to make yourself unique. And the more things that you can mix together and throw into that gumbo to make it unique, the more you're going to stand out. And if you do it well and you put all these things together, like, I mean, there was times when I took a little airbrush, added it to a painting with some acrylics, and then topped it off with some oil paints for highlights, and that piece was freaking incredible. But yeah, like anything that you can add to your artistic toolbox, do it, because it's gonna pay off. and you're not wasting your time. And one thing I learned too was that my employers at the time, when I was working for the t-shirt company, the advertising agency, all those type of places, they had no problem with me learning on a job. I learned how to do digital art on the clock. And I mean, yeah, they would be like, hey, Preston, you spend a little too much time on that. You know, the client isn't paying that much. And, you know, I would have to rush it along at some point, but it always paid off. Like, I mean, I was a very proficient digital artist and digital painter, and it's mainly because I pulled those airbrush skills, like those physical skills that I had from doing airbrush, into my digital art. You know, the principles that I learned, and it actually it helped me learn digital painting a lot quicker than other people who had to take classes. I've never taken a class in my life to go, and besides the seminars with like Bernie Wrightson and stuff like that. I mean, besides that, that's the only time I've ever taken any type of class. Everything else was self-taught, you know? So yeah, like, don't be scared to play around with different mediums. It pays off, and all of it runs into the next one, you know? If you want to just do pencils for a living, that's good luck, dude. I mean, if you think you can make a living and it'll pull you away from McDonald's or whatever job that you freaking hate right now, then good luck, you know. The main thing, what I've learned during my time is you want to be good. You want to be very honest and upfront with your customers. As far as payment fluctuates, but when you start out, you're obviously not going to get top wage, you know, or top, you know, whatever you're wanting to charge for a painting or illustration or whatever, you know, and that's okay, because what's going to happen is your rates are going to go up as you get better, you know, and you're going to get quicker. And that's the main thing, is if you're doing production line artwork, and I do put comics in the category of production line artwork, you got to learn to separate yourself from the work. You know, because if you're too close to the work, you know. Anyway, back to the point, because I tend to rant. Don't be afraid to play with other mediums. What you learn doing with color pencils, you may be able to apply with paint. You never know. I mean, because these principles, when you get down to it, the principles are all the same. It's just a different tool. And learning those different tools leads you to perfect different principles of art. So, that's the lesson for today, folks. Be sweet, stay wicked, and if you like what I'm throwing out there, I almost forgot about this part. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Out.